So welcome back, everybody. I try to do this once a year at a minimum, show you how to do a very easy repair on small engine equipment. Being that it's springtime now, a lot of you are pulling, say, things out like weed eaters, lawnmowers, generators, and experiencing failures. Well, failures to start. I'm going to show you how easy it is to go through some of the common problems right here and how affordable it is. Stop paying big bucks to the repair stores. A lot of this stuff you can do yourself. Some old weed eater here. It seems like every few years it gives me an issue. I can no longer get this to start and it's actually pouring fuel out on the floor. I'm assuming dry rotted hoses, something's wrong with the carburetor. I've got to work on it every few years. So y'all, today's video is sponsored by HIPA. I use their stuff religiously on the channel. I've been buying their stuff long before they found the channel even sponsored me. They have all kinds of carburetor rebuild kits, fuel lines, fuel filters, spark plugs, even replacement weed eater heads, stuff for your chainsaws, your generators, your mowers, your tillers, just about everything you can think of. But 9 times out of 10, when something won't start, it's an old gummed up carb or dry rotted fuel lines, things such as that. Their basic rebuild kits are typically in the $15 to $20 range, depending on your equipment. And I guarantee you, after we put this rebuild kit in today, by the way, it comes with things like new fuel filters, new fuel lines, which we're gonna need, new gaskets in here as well, a new carburetor, new spark plug, and a very common problem to fail is your little primer bulb right here that you push down to prime the fuel into the carburetor. So again, all this stuff, 15 to 20 some odd dollars, depending on your piece of equipment. So as easy it is to replace too, it's worth attempting yourself, especially on something that's already broken down, before you carry it into that expensive repair center. So a lot of these rules apply to chainsaws, weed eaters, and just small equipment in general. It doesn't have to be this specific weed eater. But when one won't run, one of the first things I'm going to do is dump out the old fuel. You should do that yearly anyways, and always try to run non-ethanol fuel in these. Small equipment does not like new ethanol fuel, causes a whole host of issues. Next thing I'm going to check is this little primer bulb. These are notorious for drying out and cracking after a few years. I just replaced this one a couple of years ago, so it's still good. As we look further down here, it's hard to see, but I'm starting to see buildup and gunk. This is where all my fuel lines come out of the carburetor. I can just about guarantee we have some dry rotted fuel lines as old as these are, and that's where a lot of my fuel issues are coming from. Maybe some of my running issues as well. But since we're already in here, we're going to go ahead and replace the carburetor so it's so quick and easy to do. So right here on the side of all your carburetors, this is where your air filter is going to be. That also needs to be checked and replaced. All right, so here's the air filter. Let's get that out. Let's don't forget our kit comes with a brand new one of these, so we are not going to worry with that at all. So here's the one in our new kit, but we're not going to put that on until later. So in order to remove our carburetor, I have to remove a couple of these nuts right here. Looks like those could be 8mm. We'll find that out. Take this cover off, and now we have access to our carburetor itself right here. They're typically very easy to get to. All right, now this cover will come off, and there should be a gasket on the back side. As you can see, there is. Don't forget our kit comes with new gaskets. You always want to replace those. There's a little line right here that we're going to remove. Those lines are so old, they're dry rotted. All right, see, we're gunked up really bad, so we've obviously got some leaks going on in here. Now, if you're watching specifically for a Stihl FS90R, which this one is, you can see we're going to get these fuel lines replaced here that go to the side of the carb, pull the carb itself off. There's a little tab right there. Looks like we can actually pop those up and out of the tank itself. So let me work that nice and easy right here, because we've got a new piece that's going to drop down in the tank and seal around right here. And here is our new fuel lines to go up into the carburetor. This stuff is so old and dry rotted. Got to be a little easy. All right, that popped out relatively okay. Now there should be a fuel filter down in the tank. There it is, relatively clean because that was replaced not long ago, but our kit again comes a new one of these. You can see this is the piece that we're replacing right here. So we'll put our new fuel filter on the end of this. So let's go ahead and remove all of this. We don't even have to remove these hoses because we're taking the entire carburetor itself out. Now there's always going to be a linkage to a carburetor. So you got your throttle right here. See what that's working back here? That little linkage, so hard to see, I know. Get the light around here and give you all a better look. So look at that as I squeeze the trigger. There's always a linkage that drives your carburetor. So we are going to need to get that removed. All right, that wasn't difficult when I had my second hand to use there. Let's see if we can get this carburetor slowly start working off toward us. It's probably going to have a stuck-on gasket as well, as old as all of this is. There we go. So there is our factory really bad gunked up carb, fuel filter, and here's always one gasket there. Pay attention to how this gasket comes off. What I like to often do is just lay it down on the bench the way that it goes back on, because our kit does come with new gaskets. Now you can see we've got a gunked up mess here because we've had leaks somewhere for so long. So what I'm going to do is clean all that up and be very careful not to get nothing in the engine. We'll slowly wipe away. And we also don't want to get nothing down in the tank itself. Even though we're going to have fuel filter, let's try to avoid any contamination. So I'm just going to slowly wipe this back. I'll see y'all back in just a second. So it's time to put our new carb on. There is a hose in the back that runs down in that we're going to have to make sure this nozzle fits into. And these two nozzles on this side are what's actually going to connect over here to our new fuel line. So we can go ahead and put those on right now. And while we have this out, let's go ahead and take our new fuel filter, put it in as well. All right, y'all, I'm using the LED light, so it's not quite matching up with the frame rate of the camera. That's why you see that flicker. So we're gonna go ahead and put this piece on, and I may have to cut some of this out so I don't give you this strobe effect that you're seeing right here. But all I have in the shop nowadays is LED lights. All right, so this hose back here, we're gonna make for sure connects to the bottom of the back side of the carburetor. All right, there's another hose right here. It goes back into the tank. Don't forget that hooks back up to the back side of our air filter cover. We're gonna have to clean all this off and replace this gasket. I'm leaving it on so I know how to put the new one on. Speaking of gaskets, this one that come off right here on this area we just cleaned, we're gonna make sure it goes back correct. I know it looks a little different, but it's the holes that's the most important. So we're gonna put it on over these studs right here, slide it on. You've got to make for sure you have that on before we put our new carburetor on. So I'm gonna need two hands again because I have to line this bottom nipple up to this hose. But we're gonna slide this carburetor on just like that. Now we can slide our new gasket on the front. And I'm gonna remove the gasket off the back side of this cover, and I'm gonna go clean all this up. And before we put all that on, let's go ahead and put our fuel filter down into the fuel tank and press this new seal in. Let's put our air filter cover on. And before we do any final hookup, we're gonna hook our linkage up. Let me get this really quick and I'll show you what that looks like. It slides in really, really easy. Hopefully you can see this. As you lift up, that puts slack on the cable. You can slide the cable down and then back out. Go ahead and put our air filter cover back on. And we want to tighten each side nice and evenly. Don't tighten one side all the way down or the other, or you can wind up not sealing your gaskets up properly. So I'm snugging up a little on one side, snug up a little more on the other. Then we will put our new air filter in, snug that up, and y'all, that takes just a few minutes, and this will take care of most people's problems. So some of y'all may be wondering why I am fixing up my old weed eater here, because I just bought an electric weed eater, and a lot of our viewers have seen it on the channel and actually really enjoy it for grass. We're going to continue to use it. But what I want to run is some brush cutting blades. And my electric weed eater does not have a robust enough gearbox or the power to run, say, a heavy blade like this that actually has a chainsaw chain on it, or a light brush cutting blade like this. So I'm going to be setting this particular weed eater up just for that. Now occasionally I will run a string head on it, and don't forget HIPA also offers those. Here's a brand new one made just for this machine. But if you've never changed out a head before, there's a hole right here, and they're all going to be different. You slide a tool down in and you rotate this around until the tool drops down in a notch, and the threads are exact opposite. So you actually turn to the right to loosen a weed eater head. Left tighten, so exact opposite of how you're used to with everything else in life. Then I have this special cup that's made specifically for running blades just like this. And then now we put a nut on here, and again, don't forget, lefty tighty here, exact opposite, throws you off. And because the blade sits so much higher than a line trimmer head, I like to go ahead and take my shroud off when running these. But I always run the shroud with a line trimmer because it throws so much stuff back at your legs. All right, let's see if this fixes it. Hopefully so, because I've got a project coming up that's going to require some brush clearing and, well, I need this for that project. All right, let's get some fresh fuel in there. And it's probably going to take a minute to get this primed up since everything is brand new. That's good. Now I should also mention, in the past I've run a pile of HIPA's carbs before and they typically come tuned very well. If for any reason this isn't tuned correctly, there are some adjustments there. And if you wind up needing to tune yours, and I have yet to ever really experience that, they've been running beautiful. Steve's Small Engine Saloon on YouTube. The guy's a master at tuning carbs and a great teacher. Typically I teach everything I can on the channel when it comes to tuning carbs. I leave that to the professionals. I do tune my own, but I would rather you learn from somebody that does that for a living. He's a small engine mechanic, but Steve's Small Engine Saloon. Go check him out. All right, let's turn our choke on. I'm also looking for leaks. I don't see any, that's good. Put this on start. Let's see if we can get this thing to start up. Looks like my rope's about to break, so we got another job to work on this thing, huh? All right, there we go. All right, so it's idling a little high from factory. That is very, very easy to adjust with this knob right here. Watch this, turn it to the right. Idles a little higher, to the left. That's just about what I want right there. It's the first time I've ever had to adjust one. Now there's air to fuel adjustments, but I've never really had to touch those. All right. So a very successful repair, y'all. You see how easy that was? A few minutes of your time, some basic instructions like mine right off of YouTube. You can save yourself what would probably been $100 and something repair bill at your local shop for all the parts and labor. And if you've already got an old piece of equipment like this that's, well, broken down, what's the risk? Go ahead and attempt it yourself. We didn't tear inside the engine today or do anything major. If we'd have messed any of that up, the shop that you would carry it to after the fact could replace it. But in the process, you're learning something. Small engines are relatively easy to work on, especially for the most common problems, which is typically bad fuel lines, primer bulbs, and or a gunked up carb. And when you can pick them up for, say, $15 to $25 full rebuild kits, it is worth your time to try to fix something yourself. I can't tell you how many weed eaters like this I see in dumps every time I go to haul off trash, and I guarantee all they need is a $15 or $20 carb, and you've got an old thrown away weed eater that's back running. All right, hopefully y'all enjoyed it. Hopefully I motivated you to get out and try some of this. Thanks to HIPA for sending out their repair kits. I have used them on all of my equipment around the property for years. I'm going to put a link down in the description, and if I get provided any discount codes, I'll put those down there as well. Thank you. It really does help support the channel. We'll catch you on the next video.